So I'll start by thanking you, Craig Ingram, for joining me here for this quick conversation about anthropology and life after anthropology and the careers that students in anthropology go on to. I thought I'd, rather than introduce you, ask you to introduce yourself and what you do here at Western.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. So Craig Ingram work within the career education unit of the Careers and Experience Department here at Western, which, as some people may know, is Western's central career services department that looks to help individuals in any of the programs at Western map out their plans both during their time in their program, as well as thinking about the transition from program to the workplace or to whatever people are going to do after they finish their studies. So I'm fortunate to lead the career education team here, and our focus is on basically helping students understand the possibilities that lie in front of them, help them map out and give thought to where their interests lie and how they can take those interests and basically shape the skills and abilities they have to appeal to whoever their target audience may be and be successful, whether it's gaining some experience during their time in the program, sort of the experiential learning side of things, or if it's transitioning, as I mentioned, as a new graduate into the workforce. The fascinating thing when you start to delve into this idea of competencies and, as you're saying, what organizations and employers state explicitly that they're looking for, because there's been different surveys done. Oftentimes, different groups look to present a landscape of, hot jobs or, things that companies that are going to be hiring and skills that are highly sought after. And the fascinating thing is that regardless of industry, almost regardless of position or level, organizations tend from right across the spectrum of industry to feedback the same set of skills or competencies that they most greatly value. And those tend to be communication skills, the ability to work effectively in a team or collaborate, analytical skills, the ability sort of looking at or understanding how to extract, understand information, problem solving and critical thinking, which oftentimes gets tied in with analytics, but that's another one that usually makes the top 5. And lastly, this idea of what they would deem personal leadership. So not necessarily formal authority over others, because early on in your career you might not have the opportunity to do that, but the thought that in any position or at any level that you're giving thought to how you can perhaps take initiative to get involved, come up with new ideas, move organizations forward. So they talk about the idea of sort of leadership at every level. So and obviously there's nuances to how much or how little they may stress each of those things when you look at a certain industry or a certain organization, whether it's a not-for-profit or whether it's a technology firm or an oil and gas company. But the fascinating thing is that those 5, I would say, are typically always at the forefront. And I think that's one of the myths that we attempt to break down, here at Western, is the thought that things might be incredibly different depending on what program you're coming from or what you've studied. I think there's a belief inside what we call sort of the educational bubble that we've all been in for so many years that the question oftentimes we get asked is, what can I do with this degree, insert degree X, right? And the reality is, as I think it could serve as both a blessing, but maybe a challenge as well, is that there's not really a set answer to that. The answer is anything, which can be a bit scary because it doesn't give a linear path, but at the same time, hopefully people would see the opportunity that lies in really not thinking so much about specifically the degree you took. And I know it's some of the great work that you've been doing that you and I talked about, but thinking about what have I learned or what skills have I been able to hone or develop through the program that I've taken, and then how can I articulate those skills or competencies out to the marketplace when I go to talk to a potential employer. I honestly believe, and I guess I would say more of a personal belief, that many times it's one's personal interests that drive them towards taking a certain degree because they find the material interesting. And I personally think that that's great, wonderful, and that may shape the areas of work that you consider doing. but the actual presentation of the skills or the competencies piece, which shows that you can do the work well, that I think is honestly quite universal. And the challenge for most students lies in highlighting those what we call transferable skills, so that you're moving beyond what job do you have for, for myself taking an anthropology degree,
Yeah.
but you're moving towards what skills have I learned, what what I know you and I have talked about, you're explicit about this, what learning outcomes are going to come from taking the anthropology program. And then when I couple that with my personal interests and the things I might think about wanting to do after, how can I extract the skills and competencies that I've learned from my time in the anthropology degree and promote those to an employer, being cognizant of what the employer values. Because that's the other thing, I think the other key that we talked about before is really trying, even though, in an interview or on a resume or a cover letter, the information that we're presenting is about us, but we need to remember it's not for us. So what becomes really key in a very competitive environment is understanding your audience, understanding that organization, that hiring manager, that recruiter, really trying to, if you can, put yourself in their shoes, think to yourself, what are the key skills, traits, or capabilities that this person would be looking for, or that might allow someone to be most successful in this role I'm applying to. And then we really want to make sure that we're stressing that we have those capabilities, and we're giving demonstrated examples of where we've done that. I think that's what sets people apart.
Completely. And as someone so embedded in anthropology and the discipline itself, I recognize that people in my position can really emphasize, anthropology, when really for many of our students going past, they're going to be meeting people, as we often talk about in class, who have no idea what anthropology is. And so part of their task is to communicate not so much just what anthropology is, but how a program in anthropology, like in any other discipline, has allowed them to develop these skills or competencies that are needed out there.
Right. And I actually think, in you sharing with me some of the more detailed background about the learning outcomes, I think definitely there's a richness there. And that, anyone watching this may feel it's a shameless plug for anthropology. Andrew hasn't paid me anything, but in understanding the field itself, I mean, the reality is when you go into any workplace, you're going to be working with people. You're going to, in essence, be within a culture that is perhaps somewhat unique to that organization or to that department. So to some degree, alongside of demonstrating that you have the skills, what better than to have been in a program that looks to seek to understand people and cultures and societies and how people act and all those kind of things, gives you also an innate value that other programs that also have value but wouldn't obviously be as focused on that that knowledge, developing that understanding. You really differentiate yourself by doing and saying and stressing the same skills, but you do it more effectively than your peers or the other people competing for the position, and that's what allows you to differentiate yourself. So that's why I think it is very important that students take a moment. Some of the work that the shameless plug for us, some of the work that we do to help students do this, to take a moment to try to really think about, what are the skills that I've learned from my program? How can I talk about some of the things that I've done in certain projects or in certain coursework that will allow me to demonstrate that I have those capabilities effectively? Because that really is, I think, sort of the secret sauce that allows you to be successful as you look to talk about what you want to do next or what you want to do to gain some experience while you're in the program.